Hey, it's Jordan with TYT Politics. I'm here in a glorious tent, and I'm annoyed that there's an air mattress under me that I wasn't invited to sleep on these last few days, but that's another story. So, serious topic here. As we know, a little over a week ago, the police raided a camp here, a little further down the road from where we are now, and arrested over 100 people, mostly on nonsense charges. And not covered at length was the brutalization of women. Men too, but these horror stories you hear about the way they treated women. So unfortunately, I'm here with one of them, but I want to get your story out. So Angie, you're from Seattle. You've been down here as a protector, and you, like other women I've spoke to on camera, were arrested, charged with felonies, told, accused of being in certain places or doing certain things. I'll let you tell the story because there's no proof, but there's also really human rights violations that have occurred with you as the victim.
Right. Thank you. So I've been here for about 3 weeks now, and I came because I saw a lot of the brutalization that was going on with the women through images, through social media and news. And I'm a trauma counselor, so I came to offer support and came out here with a friend that's a tribal member from Washington State as well. And we witnessed young women being brutalized by cops, being thrown down on the ground, some with broken backs and broken arms, and sprayed in the face with pepper spray. And that was on an action on the 22nd. And then we saw that happen again and again on actions during this last week. On the 27th, the cops came through the Sacred Grounds site in a hyper-militarized fashion and kept pushing through the camp. And when we came up there to see what was going on, the first thing that happened to me personally was I had a shotgun pointed right in my face by one of the officers next to the giant sound cannon weapon that they had. And he tracked me with it, and that image still sticks with me a little bit here. And so I was drawn to, so people were praying in a prayer circle, and which is a constitutional right in order to pray and peacefully protest.
And just so the audience knows, this wasn't at the main camp. This was at the camp where they were saying you were trespassing.
Right. So it's the north camp, the Sacred Grounds camp, and the police kept gaining ground, coming in, and so I went up to the front to talk to the police face to face like this, and I was pleading with them, saying, do not hurt these women. Do not hit them with batons. You're here to protect and serve, and this is what you signed up for. Your intelligence and your gifts are not being honored here. Go home to your wives tonight and tell them you can't do this anymore, that it's hurting you too much. I'm a trauma counselor. I know you can't sleep. I know you feel this in your body and you're holding it. I know that you're having anxiety and depression, and this is why. You're not only doing harm to these women, you're doing harm to yourselves. So honor yourselves and make an exit strategy. Do something differently. I understand you have to finish the workday today, but you don't have to do this. You don't have to use that pepper spray can. So I worked about 30 officers back and forth for about 2 hours. And during that time, they would take out Native people around me constantly, take them to the ground, put their knees in their backs, and arrest them very forcibly.
And just so we know, this spans all generations. There were elder women, there were younger women, middle-aged women.
Yeah, all ages. Elders. I had some tribal chiefs arrested right next to me, chiefs of sovereign nations. So I right there could see the effects of white privilege, how they just let me keep moving back with the crowd and not taking me out. So it wasn't until I hit the prayer circle of about 30 people that they said, okay, it's go ahead and arrest her. So they arrested me, hands behind my back. They didn't throw me on the ground or anything like that. And I was singing to them at the time, just like a beautiful song. And the women officer, she came, they wrote number 118 on my arm. And we've seen that before in history, to number people and what that means. And the female officer came back and she wrote trespassing on my arm, and then North Dakota Highway Patrol Officer number 262, which was the arresting officer. So, you know, that's 1851 treaty land that the Lakota, that's their land, and they're praying on it peacefully in ceremony. And they were taken out in such an aggressive, militarized way. They had sound weapons. They had rubber bullets, hitting people with batons, spraying people in the face with pepper spray. And all I could do was just ask them to please, please find it in your heart. You know, if you're Christians or Catholics, like, your moms do not approve, your grandmas do not approve, your wives do not want you out here doing this. And some people really backed off. It was amazing to see. You know, I looked them in the eyes and said, you have kind eyes. I can see that. You don't need to be doing this. And a few of the men, you know, you could see them moving in their bodies and putting their heads down and making eye contact. And I had a few officers say, I don't want to, but they need to move south, ma'am. Please help them move south, you know. And you could see them weighing that out as a moral issue. And, you know, it speaks to the larger moral crisis that, you know, this camp is really symbolic of here.
And legally, were they reading people their rights? Were they telling them what you're being charged with? Were they, I mean, you talk about pushing people to the ground, this and that. Was there anything further than pushing to the ground? Because it sounds like there wasn't much law. Right. You're supposed to read people their rights, tell them what they're charged with. I
was shocked by the lack of protocol procedure throughout the entire process, you know, just witnessing it all, not only there at the arrest site, but within the jail system itself. We were never read our rights until day 3. We were never told what we were being arrested for, besides that, you know, on my arm they wrote trespassing, which...
Sorry. Could you just show us what they put on your arm? I just want to make sure... Oh, you don't have it? Okay. Yeah. They had put numbers on your arms. Yeah.
It said number 118, trespassing, North Dakota Highway Patrol Officer 262, and I have pictures of it. So at that point of arrest... The officer, she came back and wrote that trespassing part with the officer's number on it, and I think she did that as a favor to me, because that wasn't on anyone else's arms really, that they wrote the actual thing. And then here on my booking card it says criminal trespass, which I'm honored to do for this and as an ally. However, what I was charged with was criminal conspiracy to endanger by fire, which is a Class C felony. The second charge is rioting, which is a Class B misdemeanor, and the third charge is public nuisance, which is a Class A misdemeanor. So I wasn't even charged with trespassing, but three different charges. And then also on here, you can see that they wrote assist other agency, and they were trying to go somewhere with the idea that we were an agency and assisting against, conspiring against the police, which is just so bizarre. So we didn't know until way later that those were the charges. We just assumed that we were going in on trespassing. So they arrested us, took our possessions off of our physical bodies, and put us into a white van. And we, on the drive up, the officer that was driving the van started pumping the brakes. And we had our hands behind our backs, so we were kind of leaning on the seat in front of us. And so, you know, our heads started slamming into the seat backs. So then we were forced to sit down in the seats and kind of like protect ourselves. And at that point, and the officer was looking back saying, hey, y'all have seat belts on? And like laughing with the other female officers sitting shotgun. And at that point, I knew that things were going to get weird. And so we...
Before you go further, I just want to backtrack. Sure. So they were charging you with inciting a fire. What exact proof or evidence? Because there was burnt cars on the road. I mean, what was your or anybody else who were charged with that connection to a fire? Because last time I checked, you have to have evidence to charge people with something. They can't just be within a couple miles of the incident. They have to be there. You have to have eyewitnesses, DNA evidence, whatever it is.
And there's plenty of pictures of me up there praying, talking to officers peacefully, peacemaking. But the women across the board got criminal conspiracy to endanger by fire, a Class C felony. And that was really just done in order to scare us. And to suppress us from going out to further actions as well.
But the fire was on the road,
right,
correct?
Right.
You were not on the road. You were in the camp.
Right.
So
I was on the public side of the road for a little bit, and then once I saw them really starting to brutalize people on the Sacred Grounds camp, where all the teepees were and where all the elders were, and the women praying, I walked a couple feet over across the property line, and happy to do it, happy to protect and try and de-escalate things. So once we got to the jail, they had us stripped down to a single layer of clothing. And when we pulled in, we could see some men that had already been put in the dog cages. And so they had us stripped down to the single layer. Some women were in their long johns, bras, and little tank tops. And it's cold here in North Dakota. And it's also a cement floor there. So they took us behind a tarp where the women cages were and had us sit there. I was sitting there for about 6 hours that evening. You
were sitting there in
the
dog cage with barely any clothes on, or they gave you back your clothes?
With a single layer of clothing, yeah. So a lot of women were in their long johns and tank tops on the cement floor. We were denied blankets. We were denied food, even though we could see food sitting on some benches over there, and this was for hours. And women were also denied medical care. One woman had a panic attack and passed out cold. And so I started yelling, like, I practice psychology. This is not okay. This woman is having a panic attack, and this is being experienced as a medical condition right now. She needs attention right now. And they just looked, and it took them a good half hour. And she had told them previously that she had a predisposition to anxiety and panic attacks, and she was backed into a corner and rocking herself. And I just saw over the course of an hour or two as they so the cages were 8 feet by 20 feet. And my cage had 32 of us in there, which means that we could either sit like this, cross-legged, or stand up very straight. There was no... we were in there shoulder to shoulder. So, and then in the cage next to me, there were 34 women in that cage, and we were in there for hours and hours. So around 10:15 p.m., they called us out, re-handcuffed us in the front, and said, okay, we're shipping you out to 5 different locations. I demanded that they tell me where they're sending me to before they put me on some bus to an unknown location. So with some resistance, they did say, okay, we're taking you to Fargo, and that was a 4-hour ride. We were cuffed at the time, and we were saying, okay, some people need their medications, some people need to use the restroom. You can't just force us on here without those things. So many women were sent off without their medications that they had on them at the time of arrest. 80-year-old grandmas with their heart medication were denied. Diabetics were denied their insulin. It just was unbelievable to see that. And also we wanted to go to the restroom beforehand, and they made us go with our hands cuffed and wouldn't uncuff them.
So when you say denied, did the police say, sorry, no time? Did they say anything, or it was just completely blown off? Because when you're denying someone insulin, I mean, in some cases that could be and food, but some of these things that they're being denied could amount to a life or death situation.
Exactly. Yeah, straight up, they took them off their bodies, placed them in an evidence bag, and were told, oh, those will go with you, but they didn't go with them. Once people got to Cass County Jail, the medicine just never came. So we got to Cass County, they processed us, they put us into our cells, and patted us down, searched us again. So that was the third search that we had experienced as far as pat down. And on the bus, we didn't have shoes on, we were cold, we were cuffed for 4 hours, and they transported us across the state. once we got in there and into my cell and in lockdown around 4 a.m., we were able to sleep for about 2 hours. And then they knocked on the door at 6 a.m. and said, okay, you need to get up and take a shower. And I said, well, I'd rather not take a shower, because I knew I wanted to keep that numbering on my arm. And they said, well, you don't have a choice. You need to get up. If you don't come and do it, you're on lockdown the whole day. So we complied and got up and showered, and I went into a shower stall with a female officer who asked me to take all of my clothes off, to squat on the ground, and then cough a couple times. And then she was there while I showered. So, and then we were changed into our orange clothing. So after that, I witnessed them do this to an elder, who is the woman who was denied her insulin. They took her blood sugar just after that, and it was over 400, which is a deadly level of high blood sugar. And they forced her up a staircase where she had to sit from fatigue multiple times. And I watched them do this to her. And they were in her face, yelling at her, telling that she needed to get in there and take a shower. And she was really, really trying. But at the end of it, you could just tell she just was dizzy and disoriented. And they were just forcing her when she really, really needed medication. It wasn't until later on that day that they told us that our charges had come in and called us to the counter. And that's where we found out that we were being charged with criminal conspiracy to endanger by fire and the rioting and the public nuisance. And our jaws were just on the ground. We just did not expect those kind of felony charges, because in no way is that what happened. These women were in prayer, every single one of them, and protecting and there with good hearts, singing in ceremony and praying. And to be criminalized like that is just shocking.
Now you're a trauma counselor, so you, for the most part, are expected to be calm, steady. You've seen a lot of shit, if we put it that way. But you're also human, so what you're describing to me is like a new human rights violations every 15 minutes. So I'm assuming you weren't, maybe stronger than the next person next to you, but how are you feeling during, what sounds like a nightmare?
I knew that I had to keep my composure, and a lot of the girls were crying and shaking, and the anxiety was setting in, and they were afraid. There's women in there that are afraid for their children, and they don't want things to happen to them for fear for their children. So people really started working from a fear-based place, and I just kept telling them, like, this isn't going to stand. Don't worry. Stand in your truth. Let's not get angry. And that really helped, the pod that I was in with those 10 other women, that sustained us, that mentality. And we would sing to each other and that kind of thing. And it was a nice support in that way, but terrifying at the same time.
So when you described when they were arresting you that there were some, let's put it at torn officers who, if you talk to them reasonably, it seemed like it was getting through. Was there any attempts to talk to the officers who were not giving medication, letting a woman with diabetes almost die? The whole list of things you told me. Was there any attempt to talk to them? Was there any showing that they might be open to listening, or maybe they didn't realize how they were operating? What was the dialogue like?
When we did bring things up to them, they just would defer it back to Morton County. Once we were at Cass County Jail, they would say, oh, that's Morton County Jail's thing. And basically they just backed out of any sort of responsibility or accountability anytime we would bring something up. And they would say, this is just how we do things here. And one of the other big things is that we never got phone calls. My phone card was blank and it never worked. So I had to call my parents collect 3 times. A lot of the women, which required a personal PIN code, your prisoner ID code. And a lot of the women, the collect call system was down. And so for some people, they never got phone calls. And our rights were still never given to us at this point, that read to us when we got our charges. So just a total lack of procedure of, they're doing it in such an illegal manner. that it just was like, wow, they're so overwhelmed and have no idea what they're doing, that it just was unbelievable, really. So the next evening, we were called in to get our mug shots, our fingers printed, and they also said, well, since you've been accused of a felony, you need to submit your DNA. And I said, well, surely I didn't commit that first felony, so no, I will not be submitting my DNA. And they said, okay, you're charged with a second felony now for refusing to submit your DNA. And from my estimate of talking to other women, over 80% of the other women did submit their DNA, which is now in a national database based on false charges. So now they have our DNA based on something that they entirely fabricated.
Submit your DNA for what? To see if you were next to a fire? I'm not following what your DNA would be submitted. It's not like, you know, for a rape kit or for any of that kind of stuff. So what is the DNA for?
I don't know. I honestly think it's for doing background checks on us. I think it's, you know, to survey and research. I don't know. That's just my speculation. But yeah, it's definitely a human rights violation for sure. I testified or gave testimony to the United Nations the day that I got back here to camp. And the United Nations was pretty upset by that. Also, the night that we were released from jail and got back here to camp, the entire hillside over there was on fire. So, you know, 60 plus women just got charged with criminal conspiracy to endanger by fire. We come back in Oshedi-Sakowin camp, it's on fire on the hill there. I mean, that to me just felt like such a planned piece of psychological warfare. It really affected me to see the hillside burning after being falsely accused of something like that.
Which they left burning for hours before anybody came.
No one came. You know, the police will be out here all the time for anything. And they've been saying, oh, you guys can't block the roads. You can't take back your treaty land, that kind of thing. It's an endangerment in case something does happen out here. When something did happen, it was quiet as could be. No we have helicopters and planes low flying here every day, all the time, in a no-fly zone. And that night of the fire, no planes, no helicopters, no fire department came.
So this was over a week ago. What's the next steps? Do you have court dates? Do the other women have court dates? Are there legal funds being developed for you? What's the action steps?
Yeah, so most of us, a majority of us, have our court date set for December 5th, here coming up next month. We were given the option to have a public defender, but I won't qualify for that, so I'll be needing to get my own attorney. And one of the interesting loopholes is that the attorney has to be licensed in North Dakota. So I can't bring my attorney from Seattle here only unless he gets a special permit. So there's a really limiting scope on who can practice here and who can defend us. So Red Owl Legal Team, who was amazing, who was a part of who bonded us out, they need lawyers and they need people to show up for us and help defend us. And it's a big deal. And hopefully these things will get dropped because they will have to substantiate facts on these charges or on these allegations in order to make them charges. So, you know, hopefully it'll all play out and the truth will come out. But yeah, we definitely need proper representation, and that's weighing on my mind right now is how I'm going to go about that. And I know what it is on, you know, the other hundreds of people who are in similar situations right now who have been out here peacefully protecting the water and standing with the Great Sioux Nation.
So bigger than this, obviously, there are really no words. It's a complete human rights violation. It's a moral violation. It's sexual assault. It's all those things. But when you look bigger picture, a lot of people here are a little disconnected to what's going on outside, rightfully so. There's no internet here. But when you see across the country leaders female leaders talking about we're stronger together. Michelle Obama's going around with this platitude, when they go low, we go high. You know, you have celebrity women saying certain things. Seems to be a very big either willful or ignorant cognitive dissonance going on. You know, I'm a man, but I consider myself, you know, feminist, and I care about women and what happens to those I love and those I don't know. But what is all this talk about stronger together and all these platitudes when women are being brutalized in North Dakota, and it seems like our leaders aren't doing a damn thing about it, men or women?
Right. Well, I mean, so what the police are putting out there, what they're bringing here around camp is serious militarized aggression, you know, which is rooted in domination and, you know, our historical patriarchal system. And, you know, where our true power is in our prayer and in peaceful ceremony and gatherings, you know, which are our constitutional rights. And
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think it's very important to say this. When you put numbers on somebody's arms, that's what fascist countries did.
Yeah.
That's what Adolf Hitler did.
Dehumanize.
Right. So maybe at this point, they're not putting you on a train to your demise, but this is how these things start. And I'm not trying to stoke up fear, but in America, I've never heard of such a thing where you're putting numbers on your arm and such things.
And put in kennels.
And put in kennels.
That's all there to humiliate. That's all there to humiliate us, to make us feel like we've been dehumanized. And those are tactics that we've seen throughout history and this done. And the same type of psychological warfare is happening here contemporarily, 2016, here in North Dakota. You know, that hill was on fire. Now they have those huge construction lights over there. And now the actions are down here at the back end of camp. We're literally being surrounded now, and it's true psychological warfare. Another thing is when I got my car back, my car was towed. When I got it back, it had a little bumper damage on it, that kind of thing from the towing, no big deal. But when I went inside of it, I could tell that someone had been in there. My things had been moved around quite a bit. It didn't seem like anything was missing at the time. When I got back here, I opened up my cameras. I had 2 cameras in there. Both memory cards are just gone, missing. So people illegally went into my car, searched it, and removed memory cards. Illegal searches. And I just have to say that, you know, this is my privileged experience version of this as a white woman. What my Native sisters have gone through is much, much worse. You know, they were beaten. They were pepper sprayed. I was not. They had cavity searches. They had to take their tampons out. They had their butts checked. They were denied things when they asked for them. If I rang my bell in jail, I would get what I was asking for. A lot of these Native women were told no for the same things. The treatment there was a great, great disparity in the treatment. And to see that while in jail with them was just such a reality check. And, you know, the DNA thing, the officer pumping his brakes on us, my car being illegally searched. I'm not a paranoid person, but this is real here, and it's really going on, and it's shocking. It's shocking that this is happening right now, and the world needs to know. And it's not just Native people's constitutional rights and human rights, it's everybody's constitutional rights and human rights. Like, this is only going to get worse if we don't do something about this now. And I really, really believe that women coming together is the antidote to this kind of militarized aggression. Women coming together and standing up in peace. And, you know, I was singing to those officers and you know, telling them that I see something more beautiful in you, and you need to honor yourself. And that's kind of what clicked for them. When people scream and yell at them and curse and that kind of thing, it falls on deaf ears and they just get more mad. So I just really hope that everyone at the camp, everyone that comes to protect, you know, we can't answer them at the same level that they are responding to us. We have to do it on a higher frequency, a higher vibration than what they're putting out there. I think it was Albert Einstein that said, like, you can't solve the same problem in the same context it was created. And so if they're coming at us with this hyper-militarized aggression, we can't come back at them with rage and anger, even though that really, really is here on a multi-generational level that's been going on for 500 plus years for the Native American community.
So I'll close with this and get your thoughts, but I think one thing that is kind of telling in our conversation, and the viewers will feel this way, and honestly, I'm not a psychologist, but I'll just predict it's subconscious. But there's going to be a subconscious, visceral reaction to you as a white woman saying this, because it's so shocking to hear this kind of treatment from an attractive, passionate white woman. But I think one thing that struck me being here this whole time is that when I talk to the Native American women about this same type of treatment, they're kind of numb to it. It's not exactly as visceral because they've been treated this way for centuries.
Right.
And me as a person, before I came here, was not actively thinking about that. I'll be the first one to admit it. Most of us aren't. We know our history, we know our Native American history, but we don't carry it around with us every day until there's an oil pipeline about to be built. So can you kind of touch on the fact that, obviously I'm sure these Native women next to you were very affected by this, but at least overall, it seems like this is what they've lived with and this kind of treatment most of their lives.
Yeah. Some of the women that I got to know very well, and I'm honored to call sisters now, they've been dealing with this their whole lives. Their moms, their grandmas, their great grandmas. There's many generations that have been abused and have dealt with this systematically within our country and the different institutions of government throughout history, and this is just another recreation of that. And hopefully now we'll be able to really get this out there and change that. One of the things that I was taught is that the way of the Great Sioux Nation is to say thank you and gratitude even to those who abuse you. That's been really hard for me. I've been like, no, I'm not going to say thank you for feeding me jail slop. Like, that's not good enough. But these humble women are, they'll say thank you. And when you're hurt, officer, I will make you dinner. I will help your children. And that compassion goes across any abuses that these officers might do to them. And for me, that's just been such a piece of learning and a deepening of my heart and compassion that I could have never, ever guessed that I would learn here. But the Lakota way and the people that are here are so loving and honorable. And this camp is truly a ceremony and a prayer. And it's good people are here, not criminals. And it's just really, really difficult to see people being treated like that. And every single day we wake up and there's the possibility that some of these young women that I met are going to get beaten with batons. It's a highly likely that they will. And pepper sprayed and incarcerated again and falsely accused of things. It truly is a war zone. This truly is psychological warfare. Constitutional rights, our human rights are all being violated here.
I'm really not a religious person. I respect people who are, so I will watch as the Native Americans pray, as I know that many I speak to really believe truly that is the way this is going to be solved. While they do that, I'm going to fucking raise a stink. And I have a feeling that December 5th court date won't be so quiet outside. And I will also make sure my viewers know how they could help with both legal counsel, but also I think support psychologically, like you said. I've heard horror stories of PTSD already here. People having nightmares at night from all that is going on. Yeah. You're the expert on those kinds of things because this is what you do for a living. But I'll talk to my viewers and give them the information they need to support. And thanks for being human. You're very brave, and I'm sorry all this has happened to you.
It's my honor. It's my honor, and I would do it again. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.